Welcome back to Kayla's Kitchen. Actually, that's not the name of my business. It's Chopped Up Academy. Welcome back to my kitchen. So today I've just been like dreaming of this meal. I'm making I'm making mushroom soup with wild rice. And I'm also making, I don't know if I'm gonna record this part for you yet, but I'm also gonna be making a sandwich to go along with that because everybody knows, like, I've never had a soup that really filled me up, so I need a sandwich. And so I'm gonna be making a fennel and apple grilled cheese sandwich with that. And it just sounds like fall in a bowl, in a plate. And so it just sounds perfect for October. Why not? So to get started, well, first of all, I made this soup last year and I was going through like a vegan challenge or something. I don't know. I like cooking vegan from time to time. And so this dish is vegan because it can be vegan and still really delicious. I will tell you along the way where you can make this and not have vegan stuff. You really could just make this. The only like specialty ingredient there is this yeast. Let me show you. So the only thing about this dish, I like to make my dishes as accessible as possible, but with this dish, it does require nutritional yeast. And that might be hard for some people to get. You can get it on Amazon though, and in any health food store, so it shouldn't be that hard. If you want to make it vegan, let me just be very clear, this does not taste vegan. It doesn't taste like you're replacing this with some sad version of a healthy dish, right? But if you want to make it not vegan, the only thing you would have to do is you can replace your oil for butter, because if you're not going to do it vegan, why not just do the richest thing possible? You can replace your oil for butter, and then you can, instead of using coconut milk, just use heavy whipping cream. And you don't need, if you use those two items, you won't need the nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast acts as it replaces or incorporates umami that you get from cheeses and creams into dishes. So if you're already using butter and cream, you don't need to add nutritional yeast. It also does have nutritional value to it. I'm not a nutritionist, and I don't, honestly, I don't eat it because I want it to be more healthy. I know it's healthy. You can read the back of it. It has like, what vitamins? It has all the vitamin B's. Okay, and that's a big deal, especially if you're vegan, right? Because a lot of vegan people, the things that they're concerned about not getting in their vegan diet would be the B vitamins. And that's pretty much it. Everybody says that they're concerned about not getting protein, but if you're actually like eating a well-rounded meal, you don't have to go without protein in a vegan diet. That's silly. So it is good for that, and it's just really good for flavoring. So since I already have this here from a year ago, it's a dry ingredient, it's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and make the vegan version of this. So let's get started. So the first thing I have here are my mushrooms. And these are dried mushrooms. We're gonna use a bunch of different types of mushrooms. I'm just going to, in the background there, you'll hear my faucet running. I'm gonna let the hot water turn on. And these dried mushrooms, I get them from the Asian market. And you just wanna use these and soak them in water. And I use this as another way to incorporate umami and more flavor into my dish, right? Anytime that I can incorporate more flavor, just like when I made the corn chowder, I put the corn cobs in the soup to incorporate more of that corn flavor in there. So that's what we're doing here. So I'm just gonna let these soak in hot water while we're doing all of our other stuff. So these are gonna go to the side. That's cold water. The other thing I have here is my wild rice. So this is just black rice. It's wild rice. There's also black rice, which looks like whole grain or brown rice, so it's shorter grain. But this wild rice is so good. It's really nutty, and it just has so much more flavor. I honestly don't like brown rice. I only eat it because I want to feel like I'm doing something healthy for my body. But this is healthy for you and also delicious. Like excuse me while I continue eating this. Hi, Diana. So this is what we'll be putting in there. Now, I've cooked this beforehand because I don't want it to like suck up all the moisture from my soup. Some people like to cook their rice in the soup, but if you do that, then your soup is going to have less liquid in it. You can either just, but this rice won't do it as much. So like with white rice, it continues to soak up liquid. But with black rice, it doesn't soak up as much liquid. But I still just cooked it ahead of time, so this is going to be ready to go when we're ready to eat. So I've gone ahead, you hear me over there. So I actually went ahead and put water in that bowl, and then I put it in the microwave to make sure that it is nice and hot, so that it can soften up the mushrooms and we can actually use those mushrooms later. So here are the rest of my mushrooms. So I have these are shiitake mushrooms right here. These are leftover mushrooms I had, and these are just cremini mushrooms. I have some king mushrooms. What are they called? King oyster mushrooms, I believe. So I have these king mushrooms right here that I'm going to be using. Some more creminis. And then I've got these trompetillas. I don't know the word. I don't know the name for them in English. They're just trumpet mushrooms. Little black trumpet mushrooms. Spain has a lot of mushrooms, by the way. Like, that's like a hobby for people, is going shrooming, and not in the way that you would think. So it's mushroom season right now, which is what I love. I love cooking stuff in the season that they are the most popular. So we're gonna start by sauteing our mushrooms. Why wouldn't I just throw regular mushrooms or uncooked mushrooms into the soup? The reason why. Where's my paper towel? Okay, so in a minute I'm going to chop up these mushrooms. Oh, here it is. I do not wash my mushrooms, right? They'll sometimes have a little bit of dirt on them, and you can just use a paper towel. I don't even wet the paper towel. The reason why is because if you wet the paper towel, the dirt doesn't come off. Like, the hardness of a dry paper towel is what you need. But it's just dirt. It's not the end of the world, and like, it's actually so when I was reading about being a vegan, they were talking about how people don't get enough B vitamins, and one of the sources of B vitamins is the dirt that's on the vegetables that you eat. And ever since then, I definitely stopped washing my mushrooms. Doesn't mean that you don't need to still clean them and make sure that they're not contaminated, but with mushrooms, they just grow on trees, so like on the bark of dead trees. So it's just dirt that's left over there, or on wood, I guess, because they're not, these companies that have the mushrooms are not just going out and foraging mushrooms. And then I've also removed the stem here. I'm not throwing this away. So this stem is going in my little container on the side here, and I'm actually going to be using that for my chicken stock that I'll be making later on to make even more soup. The soup will never end. So I am just going to slice these up. They don't need to be cut very small or anything like that, so this is the perfect size for them. And those are my dried mushrooms. So I'm slicing them up like this, and we're just going to saute all of our mushrooms. I like to saute them in the groups of, based on what kind of mushroom it is, right? Because my shiitakes kind of cook at it. They have a different concentration of liquid, so they cook at a different rate than my king mushrooms, for example, or my creminis, or my, I don't have my oyster mushrooms. I don't know, what are those things called? My Whittier mushrooms, those usually cook differently too. This one doesn't have any dirt in it. And so I cook them at the same time, or I cook them at separate times so that they can brown the way that I want them to. And I don't have to worry about some of them being not cooked enough or anything like that, or any of them getting like overcooked. So this dish, a lot of mushroom soups will be like pureed mushroom, and I choose not to do that because this dish is almost like mushroom, almost, because when I did make this, like I said, I was going vegan, so I was looking for like meaty textures. I was looking for textures that I was missing. good. And so mushrooms do a good job at kind of satisfying that. I don't want to say they substitute, because vegetables do not substitute meat ever, period. Right? But there are things that we miss about meat products or animal products that we can find ways to satisfy our brain, right? It's our brain that's missing these things by using plant-based products, right? So for meat, the texture part of it, not the flavor part, or a little bit the flavor part, can be satisfied by mushrooms. So I keep them whole, so you have like this really hearty soup that's got these chunks of these different even textures. Like every mushroom has its own texture to it. And so I really love keeping them whole, right? It'll still get creamy. Don't worry. We're going to do a nice little roux. So we will still be satisfied on the creamy front there. Another thing I noticed is I thought that this was going to kind of have like that sweet coconutty taste to it, right? Because coconut milk it has that kind of like fruity taste to it. But I realized that if I use this like I would use cream and like use savory spices, it doesn't have that. You can't taste that it is made with coconut milk. So you don't have to worry about that. We're going to add thyme and salt and all the umami that we're going to have in here. It's just going to taste like a cream-based soup. I was actually really surprised by that, because I actually love the flavor, that fruity flavor of coconut milk, and so I had no problem with that. That's why I decided to use the coconut milk, and then I just found out that you couldn't tell the difference. So I'm taking y'all through the whole journey. There will be no edits or cutouts here. If you're at home, cook with me. Save this video and then cook it with me later, because I'm right here with you. Okay, so once we have our first round done, we can go ahead. I'm going to bring you over to my pot here, and I'm just going to turn the heat on. Hi. Making sure you can see me. So I'm going to turn the heat on my pot, and I always try to make things one pot as much as possible. So I'm going to saute my mushrooms in the same pot I'll be making the whole soup in, right? Even though I have to take them out afterward. I just feel like that's ideal. So it's ideal for me not having to cook or clean anything out extra. So that's what we will do. The joys of staring at an empty pot. It's not there yet. I love this pot, by the way. I just got it like maybe a month ago. And I got it specifically because I was like, you know what? I need a soup pot. I have like a really, really big pot that I could use to make like stock for the rest of my life. But it's just it wasn't as convenient for me, right? So I got this pot. I invested a little bit. It is, what is it, the brand? Oh geez, I can't think of the name of the brand right now, but it's that expensive ass brand for pots. Oops, excuse me. That just slipped right on out. And I don't know, it was worth it to me. I'm happy about it. I used to have a Dutch oven that was cast iron, but it wasn't coated in this enamel, and I like that too. But I do find that I don't feel like I need a Dutch oven that's uncoated cast iron. I don't feel like it's necessary. And also, cast iron, if I leave the soup in there for too long, I find that it gets like a metallic taste to it. So I do prefer this pot for like slow cooking stuff. Though I do love my regular cast iron skillet. I don't feel like it's necessary for a Dutch oven. But it distributes the heat really well, so I do like having this one that's coated. Okay, so when you do this, we're going to use olive oil, right? So a lot of times when I cook with coconut milk, I use coconut oil, and that's going to intensify that coconut fruity flavor, and that's not what I want for this. So like I said, we're going to be using savory ingredients not with the purpose of, but we're going to use savory ingredients, and that's going to totally knock out that fruity flavor of the coconut milk. Okay, so we're gonna be cooking these mushrooms in batches, right? You don't have to you don't need to put down one mushroom just for the surface. That's ridiculous. But for example, I have this much mushroom for my first batch, and I don't want to cook all of that at once because it will release water and then they won't ever brown. So I'm going to do this in 2 batches. Okay. Yeah, if you look at like French cooking books and stuff, they'll tell you you can't you're going to overcrowd this, but you can't overcrowd and just put one layer of mushroom. And who has time for that? As much as I love mushroom, I want a bunch of mushroom, but I also don't want to be sitting here for a bunch of time. So this is hot now. And also mushrooms, they shrink up. So they're going to be much smaller. They're going to take up less of the pan. So everybody's going to get their direct contact with the heat. They'll have their personal one-on-one time with the surface of the skillet. So they're still going to brown. It's fine. I love that sound. So when you saute, anytime you saute, if what you're doing is sauteing, is you want to add some salt to it, it's going to help release the water from it, so that they first release. When you saute, what you're doing first is you're heating it and releasing the water from the vegetable, and then that water is going to evaporate. After the water evaporates, then it will start browning, right? So don't freak out whenever you're cooking something, you're sauteing something, and you're like, oh, it's already wet, it's not going to brown, it's never going to brown. Don't worry, it will brown. You just have to continue to cook it until that liquid is reduced, right? So we have this amount of mushrooms. There's about, 2 layers, maybe 3 layers of mushrooms in there, but like I said, it will be fine. Do not worry. Okay. So we're letting those go. What would you like to see in the meantime? Do you sizzling away, or do you want to see some cutting action over here? Let's do some cutting action. Okay, so I have all my mushrooms. They're all sorted out in their piles. I'm going to cut these into quarters, lengthwise. And then I'm just going to do this a little bit thicker, not too much thicker. So I have seen vegans using these king mushrooms as a replacement for scallops. Has anybody else seen that? I think that's cool. I haven't done it yet. Mostly because when I have these types of mushrooms, I don't know, I always think about making pastas and things like that. So I haven't done it yet, but I would like to. So maybe that'll be my next task since it's mushroom season. In Spain at least. These just look meaty. I am so ready for this soup. Honestly, I'm ready for tomorrow. Soup is just always so much better the next day, but I'm definitely gonna eat it today and then eat the better version tomorrow. Alright, so let's see what's happening here. So they've already started to reduce down. There's some liquid being released from these. Some of them are browned already. What am I at? I'm pretty high, so I'm going to just turn this down a little bit, but not too much because I don't want to be here forever. See that? Now they're about it's about 1 layer of mushroom, right? Because they're already starting to reduce. This is why you don't want to just cover your pan with 1 layer of mushroom, because then you'll end up with a quarter of your pot filled with mushroom. Okay. Back to the cutting action. Look at that. Oh yeah. Okay, so now the next thing that I will need after that, right? Whenever you're cutting your vegetables, just think about what's the next thing that you're going to need in your process. So I'm going to need my onions and my garlic. So I'm going to try and make some room so I can cut that. Got this big old cutting board. This is the best thing I've ever purchased for my kitchen. having a big surface like this to cut on makes processes like this so much easier. Okay, get over here. All right, there we go. Okay, so if you haven't seen me do this already, whenever you cut an onion, go to the non-root side and slice that off. Okay, now you've got a surface to work on. Throw this away. Look, I got containers. This is my trash can now, just to make my life easier. So the reason that hold on, I'll explain further the onion before I get back to explaining other stuff. Okay, so now you want to keep a piece of the root on both sides, both halves that you cut here. And then you can remove the skin easily, right? The root will keep the onion together as you cut, as you continue the cutting process. If not, you're going to have a bunch of layers everywhere. Okay, so you're just going to score your... I'm already crying. I think I need to sharpen my knife. That is the main reason why we cry, because our knives aren't sharp enough, and all those really fine juices that come out of the onion, which is just a bunch of pulp. Onions are a bunch of pulp. They go squirting everywhere. So I haven't cut or sharpened my knife in a while, and I am crying before I even got to the dicing part. Ugh, hold on. Okay. Alright, let's look at these mushrooms. I'm fine. Okay, so they're starting to brown. They're looking good. I want a little bit more. So the reason why, now you guys know how to cut an onion, the reason why I saute my onions before just throwing them in the soup is because this is how you get flavor on onions, right? I'm sorry, not onions and mushrooms. Guys, I do know the difference between an onion and a mushroom. I just got confused. But yeah, you get your flavor in mushrooms. Like, the best part of it is the browning part of the mushroom. So if you don't do this, no matter what other goodness you add to your soup, you're going to be feeling like you're missing something. And it's the browning process that you're missing. The Maillard reaction, if you will. Okay, let's see if I can do the rest of this without crying. Ugh. It's been a tough day. Okay. So good so far. So far, so good. And I go around at an angle, as opposed to, sometimes they will teach you to, well, almost cut through the part. They'll teach you to go vertical and then cut horizontal. I cut my fingers like a lot of times doing this part, and it's also just another step. And so if I just kind of go at an angle as I cut, I don't need to do the horizontal cuts. Right, remember, there's a bunch of layers in the onion in itself, so it's going to create its own dice. Okay. Alright, look, we're all meased over here, or we're almost all meased. Alright, these mushrooms are good to go. Ooh, I can smell it. It smells delicious. Okay, let's put these on a plate or a bowl, whatever you want. Once you have cooked the mushrooms, they can all integrate. It's fine. And this is the part where you're showing your soup some love, right? When you can taste, if you taste the soup, you know if somebody really put their foot in it, right? They really tried on that soup. They put effort and love into it. And so the difference between browning your mushrooms before you make the soup and not doing so is the love that you're putting into it. Let's put a little bit more oil. We are not afraid of oil in here. And we're gonna do this process all over again. These mushrooms are the ones that are gonna take the longest, so I don't have to worry so much about the rest of them taking forever. And this is a pretty easy soup. This part is the longest part of the soup, but it's so worth it. Just do it, bro. Just do it. Add your salt. You add your salt in the saute process. For soups at least, you can add your salt in the saute process of your soup. Make sure you always saute something. If you're just putting raw, like a bunch of raw onions and garlic and vegetable in your soup, like, oh, you're just missing out on so much flavor and love for the people that you're serving it to. Or yourself. Love yourself. Okay, so I've got those out of the way. Now I'm going to do my veggies. So I like to add my celery to or my vegetables to I am still kind of like congested or something from the onion, but I'm fine. But I like to add it to the soup as opposed to using vegetable stock. So I could, if you have vegetable stock on top of this, well great, go right ahead and use your vegetable stock, please and thank you. Ooh, these mushrooms are getting rowdy over here. Alright, okay, fine. I understand. They were just saying they needed some love and affection. It's fine. Okay. So you can definitely use vegetable stock for this, but I like to actually add my vegetables to it as a main goal, and then if I have vegetable stock, then I'll also use that. I'm just going to use water because I didn't have vegetable stock, and I'm using vegetable stock ingredients in my soup, so it will be just fine. So the reason, that's just another way to infuse more flavor, right? And also nutrients, right? You're adding vegetable stock or any stock to your soup, you're adding more nutrients. And home cooked vegetable stock is always better. I will be making a video this week, I believe. Not I believe, I've decided, so I will. This week I'll be making a video on how to make chicken stock, which is the harder version, or the longer version. They're both easy, but when you make chicken stock, it just has to cook longer. The vegetable stock, you can really just cook it for about an hour, and it's ready to go, right? You don't have to worry about raw chicken or trying to get the stock to be like gelatinous or anything like that. So yeah, I'm still sniffling, but I'm just gonna wait until I get my onions into the pot before I take care of that, because it's gonna keep on happening until then. Just sitting over here spraying away. It's crazy. Onions are, it's like, you think about a watermelon, you cut into a watermelon with a dull knife. All that juice that comes out of it, but when you cut into a watermelon with a really sharpened knife, no juice comes out, right? You're saving all that juice for when you bite into the fruit. And it's the same thing with onions. They are literally just as juicy, but it's like the juice molecules are so fine that they spray like a gas as opposed to leaking on your table. Alright, so my carrot, right, your stock would just have mirepoix, which is your onion, celery, carrot, and then whatever aromatics you want. So we're just putting that right in here, right? You're getting the fiber too, instead of just whatever vitamins that you still would have left over from boiling carrots, onion, and celery to death. So I'm down with the fiber. All right. I hate cutting stuff. Like the mise en place portion is just not fun. All right, these are almost done. These just look a little bit. I want just a little bit more color. Brown is beautiful. Yeah, I got political. Okay, so spread them out again. So you can get some more color on those. Wunderbar. Is that? I don't know where I got that from. I assume it means wonderful in German, but I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't know where I got it from. Somebody let me know. Does wunderbar mean wonderful in German, or have I created a word and just assumed that I had something right when I didn't? Okay, I just cut these in quarters as well. Because who has time? I used to hate that in culinary school. They'd be like, okay, cut planks out of your carrot. Like, who has time to cut this tiny carrot into planks? We're going to be reasonable with our time and energy and do what actually makes sense. All right. Okay, these mushrooms are ready. So let's get into that. They're going nice and slow. They stopped screaming at me. Well, they're not screaming. If they're screaming at you, then you should do something about it. But they were loud, though. Okay. Yum. I could just eat this bowl of mushrooms, and I would be happy with that. Okay, so now we're going to do our king mushrooms. Turn this down. I'm just gonna do all of these. It's just too much. I'm getting impatient. That's basically what's happening. The love is gone. Oh, they got a little mixed up. Hold on. Taking out the king mushroom. There we go. Okay. Same thing, a little salt. Also, you want to add salt to these now, because if you don't, you're going to have these chunks of mushroom that have lots of texture but no flavor. Like, they just won't absorb the salt the same way if you were to simply add salt to the soup itself. So you want to add the salt as you saute them. It's going to help with that flavor. All right. It's a process, but it is worth it. Let's do it together. All right. My last carrot. You know what's interesting is that you would think that I only talk this much when I'm doing live videos and cooking, but I literally am not changing much. I mean, like, if I'm lucky, my fiance's around somewhere half listening to me, but it doesn't even matter. If I'm not talking, I'm singing. I don't know which one you would prefer. Mushroom soup. Oh, there I go. No, y'all don't want that. Y'all don't want that. Alright, so we are almost done. I just need to chop my garlic, and then I have to clean these other mushrooms. I got these, I know the name in Spanish is trompetillas, like trumpet mushrooms. I believe that's the name in English. I haven't seen these mushrooms in so long. I used to be like the queen of knowing mushrooms when I worked, back when I worked at Central Market. If you're from Texas, you know what that is. It's like the better version of Whole Foods. They have just this whole section of mushrooms. I used to go over there all the time. Well, I still don't have like a lot of money, but this is when I was like really broke. And I would look at those mushrooms and be like, just kind of, I guess kind of like how people window shop for like expensive shoes and stuff. And I was just like, oh, one day I'm going to get those mushrooms. I'm going to get those lobster mushrooms over there. Those like $15 mushrooms. But eventually I did, and I learned how to cook with them and all of that. But, you know, it was something that I aspired to get to. Why was I telling you all that? Oh, yeah, I used to know about all of the mushrooms, every single one of them, and all the names and the ways to use them and everything, because I was kind of obsessed with what I couldn't have at the time. Oh, look at that. Things have changed. I can get mushrooms now. So we're just going to chop this up. I was thinking I might do. I probably won't. I was thinking about possibly, carrot, like pureeing part of the soup to give it like more creamy, hearty taste. But you know what? I think no. I think not. I try to like not touch the garlic as much as possible. Not that I'm afraid of it. It's just that it's so sticky. And also, I started to realize that I think my hands like always smell like garlic because I use so much when I cook. No matter how much I wash my hands, I think they just like are in a constant state of garlickiness. And I just don't feel beautiful like that, you know? I want to smell like flowers and roses like every other female. But also, if my hands smell like garlic, it probably means that I ate something delicious. So, can't complain too much. I am so impatient this week. But I don't want like big chunks of garlic here, so I'm going to mince, right? Whenever you're cutting something really, really small like this and you don't need to like dice it. Oh, please don't do that. I remember they used to make us do that too in culinary school. They would have us, like basically what I did with the onion, they would make us do that with each little piece of garlic. Like, who has time? Who is small dicing or micro dicing garlic? Don't do that. Nobody cares how perfectly shaped your garlic is. But oh man, I feel like part of that was just torture. It was fun though, good times, and I appreciate it, of course. But some of the stuff they teach you, it's just not like reasonable for you to actually use at home. Like if you were to think that this is how cooking is supposed to be, you would never cook at home. And you'd probably pay more for the food that you were eating because you'd be like, well, that's too hard for me to do. So this is definitely worth, this hamburger is definitely worth $25 because I'm not doing that. But it's not that hard, guys. We can all do it. You just have to have, I think the biggest part of like making sure that you're able to really enjoy cooking as opposed to seeing it as a chore is having a system in place, kind of having your ideas organized about what you're doing beforehand, just which I think is a great system for anything you do. So that's kind of what I do. Like anytime that if you're going to be cooking a recipe that you've never done and you've probably seen the outcome or whatever, make sure that you do some basic stuff like please hold. I'm gonna let y'all get some of this nice mushroom action as I continue prepping on the cutting board, and you can just listen to the beautiful sound of my voice as I explain some things. But yeah, so you want to make sure that you read your recipe, like the whole recipe, every step, everything on the paper or the website before you start cooking. There's been so many times where I haven't read a recipe and I thought I knew what I was doing or whatever before I went to culinary school, and then you find yourself like, okay, I'm on step 3, and they're like, okay, so I don't know, let me give you an example. So you should have turned on your oven by now, or there's something that you should have already been doing, or that you could have already been doing that you didn't know about because you didn't read the steps. You just read the ingredients. Stuff like that happens often because not every recipe is written in the most convenient way, because when we get recipes from a bunch of different people and maybe the way that their brain works is not the most efficient way for you to cook in your home. So read your whole recipe. That is your first step. Then you want to kind of think about, okay, you have the steps there, but you want to think, is there anything that you need to do differently than what the recipe is telling you? Like order-wise, or anything that you know about cooking, right? Your recipe is not a Bible. So if you know something about cooking, you know that what that recipe says is not going to work out. Be confident enough in yourself to make the changes necessary, right? If you see a recipe for a cake and it's telling you it needs 6 cups of flour and a cup of milk, that's not going to work. And you know that, right? So use your own intuition. And in that case, you should just not use that recipe, because that would be a terrible recipe. And then you want to make sure that you're thinking about like when you can use your time. So instead of like cutting everything before you even start the recipe, do like what we just did. We have all this kind of downtime while we're waiting for our mushrooms to saute. So we know, okay, well then if I have to wait for my mushrooms to saute, we're doing them in batches. Well then while I'm waiting on that, I can be right next door to them, cutting up my vegetables then, right? So keep organized. Also, as far as keeping organized, I always have my little trash can next to me, whether it be my actual trash can or a little container that I set aside to put trash in. Those are all really good things to do to make sure that you're able to relax. You also want to make sure that if you have downtime to clean in your downtime, because if you don't clean in your downtime, I'm going to eat one of these. Okay, I see why they could say that would taste like a scallop. I get it. Okay, I'm ready. If you're cleaning in your downtime, you don't have to worry about at the end of all of this work that you just did, and maybe you even like enjoyed all the cooking, having to turn around and look at a sink full of dishes is going to take away all the joy that you found in the cooking process, no matter what, right? So cleaning your downtime so you don't have to worry about that. And my last advice for you to make sure that you have a good cooking experience is to make sure you have something to imbibe on. That's how you use that verb. Don't question me. Why not? Like, make it fun, right? Cooking doesn't have to be a chore. You like to eat, right? I don't. Yeah, that oil just attacked me. But you like to eat, right? So why not be excited about the process to get to the eating point, right? This is relaxing. Put some music on. Listen to me chatting away with you. You can talk back. I will respond. It's fine. But do what makes you actually happy in the kitchen. You find that once you kind of have those systems or habits in place, then that's when you can start trying different things, right? Once you've found your comfort spot. And when you're cooking, oh, that's another thing, make sure you're cooking something that you want to eat. If you've been eating spaghetti for 25 years and you just make spaghetti because that's what you've been eating for 25 years, but you don't really like it, stop that, please and thank you, right? Cook something that you actually want to eat, that you're looking forward to eating at the end of the day. I know sometimes we don't have time. We just cook whatever's in the refrigerator, whatever's like quick, but if you can, whether it be just adding a couple different spices into your spaghetti, I don't know, maybe you use ground lamb if you can instead of ground beef, and you add some nutmeg in there and you've got like a Greek version of spaghetti. Do something to spice up your cooking life, okay? All right, we're almost there. We put a lot of work, energy, love into these mushrooms, but it is going to pay off. It is going to pay off. Don't you worry. Oh, Lord. I don't know if this knife magnet is the best idea, but you know what we got. Okay, so now I have these mushrooms. Let me get them in a bowl for you. Bowl. Where are you? Excuse me, sorry. I need this space. Thank you. So I have these mushrooms, and they are not clean. Well, they're clean, but they have like hay or something in them, so I have to kind of pick through them. Fun, fun, fun. I got this from the produce store. The vegetable store. But they are like definitely from nature, like recently plucked from nature. So that's gonna be fun while I'm waiting here. I really do enjoy like being able to go into my produce market and ask them like, what's in season? I went in there and asked them about truffles, because you know I want some truffles. And of course, if you ask them about truffles, they're like, "Ooh, let me give you my contact information," because truffles are not cheap. So that's like a big sell for them. Imagine it, like working in a. I'm just trying to get the stuff off. Working in like a produce place, like everything's kind of a small sell, just because produce is not that expensive in comparison to other products. So somebody comes in there asking for like a $10, $15 or $20, $30 product. They are all about the customer service, which I don't see much here. Okay, this is going to be tedious. I do see that. Okay, where are these mushrooms at? I'm getting to the point where I'm just ready to eat, but don't be like me. I didn't want to eat lunch, like really eat lunch, because I was waiting to make this. So I am unreasonably hungry right now. Don't mind me. Oh my God, this is going to be really annoying. Okay, you who are in the United States and any other country where they don't have things like this, you probably won't have to worry about ever having to pick out wood and hay or whatever. These are like pine needles from your mushrooms, because they always come like in perfect condition, right? Everything's always clean. Produce is always perfect looking. I still have a complex about that. I cannot eat like apples or bananas that are bruised, because I'm used to my perfect looking produce. Oh my God. This is gonna take forever. Why did I do this? Get me trying to be healthy and feel like a hipster. And I'm paying for it now. Okay, these mushrooms are done. Ugh. Okay, so while I'm cleaning these mushrooms, since this is going to be like an arduous task, I'm just going to turn off my stove so I don't like burn my pot. There's nothing in there, but it still can burn the pot. Oh my gosh. Okay, I might never do this again. I mean, if I go to like my Mercadona, which is, you know, the regular grocery store, then I wouldn't have to worry about this. But they also don't have as many options, so I probably wouldn't be able to find these types of mushrooms there. Ugh. What is this? Maybe they did just go pick these from, or forage these from the woods. I don't know. Like recently. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, if you don't have to do this part, you just go ahead and fast forward through it. Or you can watch me suffer here. Whatever you like. It's up to you. These are almost like, they're pretty. They're really pretty and colorful, so part of me doesn't want to saute them. I'm afraid they're going to lose their color. Or you know what I'll do? I'll saute them, and then I'm going to leave them out until the very end. Because they probably don't even... Well, let me bite one and see what happens. Oh, you know what's not good, though? Is raw mushroom. I don't know what I was thinking. But don't do that. I don't know what flavor I thought I was going to get. But don't do that. Anyways, I was just trying to see if it was like really flavorful, or if it was going to impart some strong flavor on the soup. And I mean, they're mushrooms, duh. Kayla, do better. Anyways, so I am just going to add these at the very end of the soup just so they can kind of maintain their color. I can kind of like feature these on the top of the soup because they're very pretty. Also, there's nothing in here that's like poisonous, so I mean, I don't want you to leave pine or tree stuff in your tree debris in your mushrooms, but just saying, like, you don't have to worry about this being like dangerous for you to eat if you get something in there. It's just pines. Ugh. If you are just tuning in the middle of me cleaning out these recently foraged mushrooms, I hope you enjoy. But it does get better. I just want to make sure you know that. Okay, well, the rest of this. Oh man, I have more. And I'm definitely going to use them because I know if I don't, oh, maybe I'll. Oh my god, look at all that tree stuff. Like, why? This is why I don't eat organic. Oh my gosh. This is like almost mostly debris in this part. Did they charge me for debris? How much was this? Like $7? No, I think all my produce was $7. I also got these apples. They're like pink on the inside. Or slightly pink, or maybe they were just oxidized, the ones they had cut open. I don't know, but they look good, and they were a different breed, like a hybrid between some other apples that we always have. I don't know why that would make them pink, but whatever. And I'm gonna put that in my sandwich. Ooh, I can't wait for this sandwich. It's gonna be so good. You don't even know. Oh gosh, I'm so slow at stuff like this. Okay, come on, just think about eating. I think about eating, I'll get to it quicker. I don't think that's how that works. If you think about what you want, you'll get to it quicker. Probably not. God. I could make a nest out of all of this stuff in here. Somebody know a trick for... No, there's no trick for this. Just gotta do it. And now that you know that this is the case, please look at your mushrooms before you start cooking, and this will be one of those things that you do ahead of time so you don't have to endure this while you're trying to cook. Turning off your stove, making you less efficient, all that. So it's a wild rice and wild mushroom soup. Hey. Leaves, or if you're really paranoid, you can go ahead and wash these. I'm gonna rinse them a little bit, I think, because these are just they are very fresh or organic. Please excuse the children outside of my door. It's playtime for them. But I needed air circulation, so the window is open. Oh my gosh. Do I want the rest of it? These mushrooms were expensive though, so we are gonna get all of them. Okay, that's enough for me to get started. Oh look, there's me to get started sauteing again, at least. Okay, well they're just having a blast. So I'm just gonna rinse these, and then I will put these onto the stove, into the pot on the stove. Please hold. Oh, of course. Of course. Okay. Okay. they are as clean as they need to be. Also consider the fact that you're cooking them, so you put them in heat and any extra bacteria that's true of most things. Okay, so I'm just gonna let this get hot and we can get back to the cooking process. So these don't have to cook very long at all. They'll be done very quickly. So you also don't have to use these mushrooms. I just used them, like I said, because they were in season, they were available. I think that using more wild mushrooms would be even better, but this is just what I had available, so that's what I use. So I do think that the more wild mushrooms you can get your hands on, that's what you want to use. But if you can't, just use whatever mushrooms you can find. I've done this dish with just creminis, shiitakes, and the white cap mushrooms, and it was still delicious. So since I rinsed those, I can cook these at a higher heat because it has water in there and I want that to evaporate. I actually just put it all the way up. Look at all that liquid. Just at the highest. Did you open your wine yet? I need to open it. And the wine is for the cooking as well. I don't really just buy this, but like even if it's not, just have something. Hey, you want to see? Hey. Oh my gosh, these also release a lot of liquid. These mushrooms. That is not just from me rinsing them. I did drain them, but they are bubbling. It's wine time. It's Wednesday, but it is my last day to work for the week, so I'm gonna celebrate that. Ooh, okay. Ooh, I love that sound. No, I don't have wine glasses. Judge if you want. I'm still drinking wine. Okay, so look at these. These have released like a lot of liquid, right? You saw how there wasn't that much liquid in there before. So, oh man, I really want to, no, I'm just gonna let them go like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and put them back in the container. Put it back in this container. I'm gonna use a slotted spatula, and then the liquid that is released will just be used to flavor the soup. Mushroom juice. Which, oh, that reminds me, I have dried mushrooms marinating or soaking right now so that they can be, the juice of that can be added to the soup. Oh, that wine is really good, by the way, if you're wondering. Verdejo. Wow, that was the most American way to say that word ever. I'm going to turn this down because it's on high. And that's going to dry up anyway. But I want to add my onions to this. So let's add some water. It's probably going to pop a little bit. Look how fast it dries up. So, onion time. So this is when it starts to get easier. It starts to get quicker, right? We've done all the sauteing of mushrooms that we could do. The cleaning of wild mushrooms. Of recently foraged mushrooms. We're going to add our veggies and saute. So these don't need to brown. I kind of just want them to get translucent. If they do get brown, that's also fine. But you want to brown a little bit. But you just want them to get soft and delicious. Onions are one of my favorites. Onions and carrots also, they both provide sweetness to dishes. Like, they just provide a lot of sweetness. Celery, not so much. If you're making stock, well, I'm going to save that for the stock video. Never mind. don't worry about it. If you want to know what I was going to say, just check out the stock video that will be out in a couple of days. Why am I seeing talk? Why?